We're back here, whole 9 yards, Monday afternoon. Brandon, how's it going?
It's good. Everything's pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good. Is your championship winner still alive in for March Madness or in your bracket or?
Yes, my champion is still there. I have Gonzaga. So yes, I still have my champion.
I mean, Oklahoma State's been out since the round of 32, but in my second bracket, I have Michigan winning it. So, I mean, they have UCLA right now. Their game is tomorrow for Tuesday. I mean, I think that's probably the one of the best matchups. I'd rather go up against UCLA than against USC or Arkansas or I mean, I guess technically Baylor or Gonzaga, obviously, but yeah, I mean, we're gonna start March Madness here. Then we're gonna do a mock draft, NFL mock draft. So stay tuned for that for 16 picks. I'm pretty excited for it. But yeah, I mean, what was your initial reactions? I mean, I think the game I like to start with is Arkansas Oral Roberts, just for the fact that I'm super disappointed Oral Roberts lost, and I think everybody was just so. I mean, I could feel the weight in the room on that final shot, that 3 point shot, and it just missed. And obviously, Oral Roberts lost to Arkansas 72-70. So it was super disappointing. But that was my favorite game of the Sweet 16, most disappointing game of the Sweet 16. So
Yeah, no, that was a great game. I thought that last shot was gonna go in. Also, I think most people honestly wanted that shot to go in. I think, I don't even know if it's just dislike of Arkansas or just people liking a 15 seed getting to the Elite Eight. It's probably the second one, but that would have been a great shot. Would have been a great end to a great game. That would have been like a classic March Madness game. That was kind of like the what game was it? The UCLA Alabama game, which we can also talk about, where the guy in Alabama, I think his last name was Reese, hit that 3 pointer right at the buzzer to tie the game. Those two games are very similar in how they ended, but yeah, no, that was definitely a great game, and I'd say my favorite game was probably the UCLA Alabama game. I thought that was a great game too. Not really a good game, but in terms of basketball, but it was just a great. There were so many sequences that went either way, and so many exciting moments. So I thought that was a great game also.
yeah, no, that might have been a more yeah, in terms of the actual game itself, that might have been just a better game. I mean, it went into overtime. I'm sure if you bet the over on that, you were excited as well. But yeah, I mean, I just thought that if Oral Roberts made it to the Elite Eight, I mean, that would have been so exciting to watch. I mean, they would have they'd be. I mean, I guess they'd be playing Baylor if they had won. So they would have had to. I mean, imagine if Oral Roberts beat Arkansas and then somehow like beat Baylor. They would have had to go through. I mean, they would have gone through a 2 seed, a 3 seed, and a 1 seed
Yeah.
to get to the Final Four. But yeah, I mean, it sucks because I was really hoping Oral Roberts was going to win that. I mean, other notable. I mean, Loyola, Oregon State. I mean, Oregon State makes it to the Elite Eight. I mean, that's the last team, one of the last teams I was expecting to go on a run like this.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess them and UCLA, I mean, obviously based on their seeds, are the most surprising teams to get to the Elite Eight. But Oregon State, I mean, the only reason they got in was because they won the Pac 12 championship, which they really had no shot of winning that. And then they go on this run where they've really looked like the best team in all the games that they played, like in terms of the games against their opponents. But yeah, another pretty good victory. I mean, this was all about their defense. Honestly, the first half, I think they held Loyola Chicago to 16 points, and then they matched them in the second half. I think they both scored 40 points, so it was enough to hold the lead. And I don't know what's going to happen with them going into this next game. They play
Houston.
Houston's pretty good. I know they had a scare earlier against like Rutgers, but they're a pretty good team. So I mean, it's only one game, and a team's this hot, so it's not easy to say Houston's going to win. But it's that game will definitely be a really good game.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, USC and Oregon. I mean, I'm really hoping USC pulls off the upset. I mean, I know you're not, but
I mean, Gonzaga.
I'm rooting. Yeah, against
Yeah, yeah,
Gonzaga.
yeah.
I'm just rooting for like not Gonzaga to win, just because I feel like that was like the boring pick going into it. I mean, it's still the boring pick. They're definitely still the favorites. I mean, they've looked pretty good, and I mean, they're probably the most talented team. I don't remember. I don't even know if they've ever won a NCAA championship. I don't think they
No,
have. No.
they went to one 2015.
Yeah.
2016, something like that. I want to say one of those years, but I don't think they've ever won. But USC, I had them going to my Elite Eight. I had them losing to Gonzaga. If they were playing any other team, I'd probably, like, before the tournament would have started, I may have picked USC, but they were, they're on that side of the bracket, which hurts them because they probably would have been a pretty popular Final Four team if they didn't have to play Gonzaga before.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't hate Gonzaga, but I definitely would not. I'm not going to be rooting for them for any of their games right now. That's for sure. But
And then I guess really maybe a surprising game was the Michigan Florida State game. I'd say it's surprising in the fact that Michigan obviously doesn't have their best player. He's been out the whole tournament. I think most people thought they'd probably lose this game if they were to lose a game. Florida State's a pretty good team, but Florida State just played really bad. It was probably their worst game of the season. I don't know all their games, but I'd say it probably was their worst game. I think they had 16 turnovers. They could barely shoot from the field, and Michigan just outplayed them. I think if you were to play that game again, Florida State probably wins, but I mean, unfortunately, you can't. So, Michigan, I'd say, has been a surprise just because of the fact that they've been missing their best player, and all the other guys just had to step up, and they have so far. And now you're right, like we said, they play UCLA. That's probably the easiest matchup. Maybe Oregon State, but they've been so hot that it's kind of hard to pick who would rather face UCLA or Oregon State. But for them to face UCLA to get a chance at the Final Four, that was definitely a break for them. So, yeah, Michigan, I don't know how far they'll go because they'll have to play Gonzaga or USC next, and I think both of those teams are better than Michigan is, but it's definitely an accomplishment that they've even gotten this far without their best player. I think his name is Livers, I think it was. So for them to get this far and possibly get to the Final Four is pretty impressive.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they were the one seed that most people were expecting to get eliminated earliest. I mean, obviously Illinois was the one that went down first, so I mean that was definitely a surprising game. But yeah, it's I get really scared to pick Michigan. I mean, I have them winning it, but I'm scared to pick them. And like, if I was gonna bet on a game, I'd be scared to pick them just because. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have your best player, you're not really a one seed. Like, you shouldn't actually be a one seed, I guess. But yeah, I mean, they definitely get probably one of the easier matchups in the Elite Eight going against UCLA. I'm not sure who, like, if you had to pick to play one of these teams, I'm not sure exactly who you'd pick, but I mean, I think you'd have to consider picking UCLA, I guess is what I'm saying. It's definitely easier than going against,
I mean, they possibly,
Baylor, Gonzaga.
they would have had to face one of those other teams. I mean, if Texas hadn't lost, they would have had to face Texas or maybe even Alabama if they didn't lose. So for them not to face those teams, I mean, that's huge. That's just huge
Yeah,
for them, just to be able to get to the Final Four possibly.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, we kind of went over all the games, but I guess we could pick our teams to win for this next round. So I guess we'll start with just the first game I see. So Gonzaga USC, that will be played tomorrow at I guess Tuesday at 7:15. I mean, I'm gonna go with Gonzaga. I picked them. If I hadn't picked Gonzaga, I might go USC, but I think Gonzaga is just the best team in the country. They really haven't ever had problems at all in this tournament, so it's kind of hard not to go with them, even with the way USC's been playing also.
Yeah, I'm gonna go USC. I mean, I don't know if they're legitimately the better team, but I mean they probably have better NBA prospects, so I think they have a higher ceiling potentially. And I just don't like Gonzaga, so I'm gonna go USC. Gonzaga just doesn't play well. USC is the best game of the season, and I think USC could move on there. So I'm gonna go with USC.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to need. They're going to need Gonzaga not to play their best game and for USC to play their best game. But yeah, I know. I definitely like that pick. I don't know. I think Gonzaga is just playing amazing so far. But again, it's only one game, so anything can happen. Next game, Michigan, UCLA. We kind of talked about it, but I mean, look, I almost have to go Michigan just because they are the better team. Again, even without their best player, they still are the better team than UCLA. But it's definitely this is gonna be a really good game. Also, I think it'll be close. It's gonna be a battle. I just think it comes down to the end where Michigan's more experienced and more talented. So I think it'll be a close game, but Michigan probably holds out, and they would face Gonzaga at least for me in the Final Four.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with Michigan as well. I mean, I think they're a solid team. I think Howard's a great coach. Yeah, I'll go with Michigan.
Next game, Baylor, Arkansas. I had Baylor winning this game originally. I had them facing Ohio State, but I still had Baylor winning, and I'm going to stick with Baylor. I don't think Arkansas is really that good, honestly. I had them losing earlier in the tournament to Texas Tech. They did win that game, but their last game against Oral Roberts, they barely won that game. I think Baylor's the second best team in the country. I think most people would agree with that, and I don't know. I just feel like Baylor's gonna win this game pretty convincingly, so I'm gonna pick Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna agree. I think most people would agree they're the second best team in the country. Arkansas, I mean, they haven't really looked good in a lot of their wins. They definitely didn't look great in the Oral Roberts one. And I mean, I know it's not like they played horribly, but Oral Roberts is a 15 seed. It's hard to go out of that thinking Arkansas played great when you're beating a 15 seed by 2 points, almost losing the game if that shot goes in. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Baylor.
And for the last game, it's Oregon State versus Houston. In my bracket, I had Oklahoma State in this situation against Houston. I had Oklahoma State winning. But again, obviously, they lost to Oregon State. I want to go Houston, but I'm going to go with Oregon State. I feel like there has to be an upset somewhere. The way Oregon State's been playing, they've just been on a run, which always happens. It seems like every single March Madness. And even though they definitely looked really good against Syracuse. I don't know how good Syracuse really was, but they definitely looked pretty dominant over them. But I'm going to go with Oregon State because I feel like a team always goes on this kind of run, and I feel like it's going to be Oregon State. So I'm going to go Oregon State.
I'm gonna go Houston. I mean, it's tough to just go with the favorite in every game, but
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where that upset is. I mean, I mean, there's probably going to be an upset, right? It's not. I don't think all the one seeds are going to win their games and then Houston win their game, but I'm not exactly sure where that upset is going to be. I mean, I guess USC would be that upset, but I don't view it the same as Oregon State winning. I view that as like a true upset. If USC wins, I mean, yeah, it'd be an upset, but I wouldn't view it as like. I mean, I think USC has the potential to legitimately win the game.
Yeah.
Oregon State, if they win, it's just because they're one of those teams that's on an insane run. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Houston. I mean, they're just a better team in my opinion. They've looked pretty, other than the Rutgers game, they've looked pretty convincing. Like they handled Syracuse very well. I mean, Boeheim shot 1 for 9 from 3 or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go with Houston. I think they're the better team. So.
All right. So for my Final Four, I would have Gonzaga, Michigan, and then in the other game I would have Baylor, Oregon State. And so what would you have for your Final Four?
I'd have USC, Michigan, and then Baylor and Houston.
All right. So we'll see how it all turns out. We'll see if we're right, at least on those picks right there. And then we'll talk about it. The Final Four games are on April 3rd, so that's Saturday. So our next episode we'll talk about that. But
yeah. All right. So we want to get into the mock draft.
Yeah.
We're just going to do the first 16 picks. We're going to go back and forth. I guess we never talked about this, but do you want one, or do you want to start with one, or do you want to take two?
Well, do we want one of us just to choose which one, or do we want to do like a random choice or something like that?
What do you mean?
Like a coin flip or like a random number or something like that?
Okay, so the Cowboys are 10th, right? They pick 10th?
Yes.
And the Pats pick 15th. So I guess I start with 1 because that means I'll get the Pats pick and you can take 2, which means you'll get the Cowboys pick, I believe.
All right, yeah, that sounds fine.
All right, so I mean, 1 is just it's the easiest. It's probably the only easy pick of the draft. Lawrence, he's the best player. It's probably not too close. Yeah, he's just the best player. He's probably the most hyped prospect since probably Andrew Luck. If not, then you go all the way back to like a John Elway. Yeah, he's just insane. I mean, there's a reason that he's just insane. I don't have any other words. He's the number 1 pick.
Yeah, I have nothing to say else. He's clearly going to be the first pick. It's no doubt about it. So second pick, the Jets have that pick. I'm going with Zach Wilson. I think he solidified himself as the number 2 pick based on his pro day, which was a couple days ago. That was an insane pro day. The throws he was making, the actions that he was doing wasn't just normal throws. It was in-game throws that he was doing. It was in-game maneuvers that he was practicing on. So I wasn't even really sure because most people probably haven't watched BYU that much this past year, but from what I'd seen and what I've read about him, and then based on what I saw on his pro day, I'd say he's now clearly the number 2 pick. The Jets, I know there was some talk about maybe they keep Darnold, maybe they don't. I think now it's pretty clear that they don't keep him. Whether that means he'll back up Wilson, maybe starts the first couple games and Wilson goes in, or they try and trade him. I don't know, but I think Zach Wilson is the clear number 2 pick in this draft.
There were rumors that the Jets are willing to take less than a first round pick for Darnold. I don't know if they're going to get a first round pick for Darnold at this point.
I don't think they will either.
I think the longer you wait on to him, the more that all the teams get their actual quarterback like options on their team. They know who they want going into the regular season. The less room there is going to be for Darnold to get onto a roster because, I mean, yeah, just look at, I mean, yeah, when San Francisco trades up to the 3rd pick, maybe San Fran called New York and they're like, maybe a couple months ago they're like, hey, first round pick, Darnold, and the Jets are like, no, we don't know exactly what we're doing yet. We're going to hold on to Darnold. Next thing you know, the Niners are trading up to 3, and the Jets have, I mean, they're not going to be able to trade him to the Niners at least. I'm not exactly sure what teams now are looking to trade for Darnold. Well, I guess we'll get into that later in the draft, but yeah, I would agree with Wilson at 2 there. Well, actually, I wouldn't agree with Wilson there at 2. I don't think he's worth the number 2 pick. At least if I'm the Jets, I would keep hold of Darnold and either trade out or draft a not quarterback there. But yeah, at 3, I mean the Niners traded up. They traded up with Miami to get this pick. Yeah, they're obviously going to go quarterback, so I'm gonna pick a quarterback. Again, I'm not sure that that's the best thing to do here, but I'm gonna go with Justin Fields. I think if you're trading up to 3, you're probably not looking at Trey Lance. I think you're just trying to guarantee yourself you're getting Justin Fields here. Maybe you are looking at Trey Lance, maybe, but I think they're going for Fields. Fields, in my opinion, is probably the second best quarterback in the draft. I have him over Wilson. I'm just not that big of a fan of Wilson. I think Wilson's that guy that he has the arm talent. Everybody oohs and ahs at some of his throws. Like at his pro day, that one throw, everybody's just going crazy over. And it's a great throw. His arm talent's insane, but there's just not much in terms of actual in-game film for me to be like, yeah, I mean, pre-snap, this guy's better than Fields. I don't know if that's true. He's definitely got better. He's probably got a higher ceiling than Fields, but I'm not sure. I think that floor is so low. If Wilson could be that guy that's a bust, I don't see Fields being a bust. So I'll go with Fields at 3, and I think he's my second best quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, I would, based on the trade that happened, and I'll just go over it quickly. It was the Dolphins traded the 3rd pick to the Niners in exchange for the number 12 pick this year, a first and a 3rd round pick in 2022, and a first round pick in 2023. And then there is a second half of the trade, but we'll get to it when we get to the number 6 pick in the draft. But that was the first part of the trade. So based on the Niners moving up to the 3rd spot in the draft, you're right. They almost have to take a quarterback. I mean, I just don't. There's no other reasoning not to. If you're gonna do all that to move up, so I'd go Fields unless they really love Lance more. I'd say Fields is probably the better prospect. Maybe there's a higher ceiling with Lance, but I think Fields is probably better than him right now. So if the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson with the number 2 pick, they're left with Fields, which it's not a bad pick. I don't love Fields as much as obviously Lawrence and Wilson, but I think if they must really love Fields if they're moving up to get him. If you're going to give all that away to get a quarterback for a team that already has a pretty, he's an average to okay quarterback in Garoppolo, you clearly must love Fields. So, yeah, I think they're going to take him also. So for the 4th pick, it's the Atlanta Falcons. I wasn't exactly sure where to go with this. I feel like, honestly, in real life, they may trade out of this pick.
Yeah, this is one of those where I think a team can trade up here. This is probably where Lance goes. I think Lance probably goes 4.
I honestly think, and we won't do trades, or at least maybe just for this pick. I don't know, but I think the Patriots could maybe move up to this pick if they really wanted to. If they wanted to take Lance, or maybe Wilson or Fields fell and they wanted him at 4. I don't know, but maybe that happens. But we're just going to stick with the Falcons taking this pick. They're not going to go with quarterback. They just restructured Matt Ryan's contract, so he's basically going to be their quarterback for at least this next season and possibly the next season. He's at least under contract for the next 2 seasons, but he'll definitely be the quarterback this year. So I say they probably go rather defense or offensive tackle, so that leaves Penei Sewell, or I think maybe Micah Parsons goes here. I know he has a lot of character issues and stuff, but he had a really good pro day also, and also just the talent that he is. So I would say probably one of those 2 guys. If I had to pick, I guess Micah Parsons, because they just need defense, but I'm not even really sure. So I'll say Micah Parsons, but it's kind of a question mark.
Yeah, no, I 100%. I think that's a fine pick. Yeah, I mean, I think you could trade down and get Micah Parsons in that 8, 9, 10 range. But yeah, I mean, you considering there's no trades, Atlanta's kind of in a tough spot here. It's one that if they get a good offer, they definitely trade down. The Bengals at 5. I wanted to go offensive line here. I think you could go Penei Sewell. I'm gonna go Kyle Pitts. I just think he's the best tight end prospect since I don't even remember. I mean, he's basically just he's a big receiver who has insane speed. Can Obviously he's a tight end, so he can still block. He can do all the tight end stuff, and he's just an insane receiver. His hands are insane. His catch radius is insane. His speed is also insane. I think you could tap Kyle Pitts here. It gives another weapon for Burrow. Obviously, you'd like to see them get a tackle or two somewhere. I think you probably get a tackle in the second or third round. The tackle draft seems pretty deep to me. I'm not too knowledgeable on the tackles outside of like Sewell, Slater, and maybe a couple others that I can't think of right now. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Pitts here. I just think he's the best value pick at 5. I think he's probably the best player on the board. So yeah.
Yeah, I think he's also the best player in on the board. Not, I guess, not counting Lawrence, I guess, but I think Pitts. Yeah, you're right. It's between Pitts or Sewell. Do they want the offensive line, the big offensive line help right now, or do they want another weapon and then add offensive line later? I would probably agree with you. I'd probably go Pitts here. I think he's just the best player. So there's nothing wrong with ever taking the best player. So for the 6th pick, the Dolphins now have that pick. So that trade was with the Eagles. So the Eagles traded their number 12 pick, or they traded their 6th pick to get the number 12 pick from the Dolphins, a 4th-round pick, and a 2022 first-round pick from the Dolphins. And that was for the number 6 pick and a 5th-round pick in this year's draft. So the Dolphins have the 6th pick. They're going to go receiver. I'm going to go Jamar Chase. I think he's the best receiver in the draft. Obviously, Devonta Smith has the best stats, and he obviously just won the Heisman. But I don't think he's the best receiver. When you have Jamar Chase, who sat out last season, and then Jalen Waddle, who's probably pretty comparable to Devonta Smith. But I think Jamar Chase is the best receiver. Obviously, Miami needs one. They're going to go with Tua as their quarterback. I mean, based on the trades that they've made to move out of the 3 spot and go down to 6. So they need a weapon, and I think Jamar Chase is probably the best wide receiver in this draft. So he's a perfect weapon for Tua.
I think Jamar Chase, I think he's probably the pick there. It doesn't make too much sense to me. Why would you trade from 12 to 6 to take Chase? Not that the Chase is going to be there at 12, but I just think you'd have better value taking. I'm going to assume that either Smith or Waddle will be there at 12. I think you'd probably have better luck staying at 12 and taking one of them. If not, if neither of them are there at 12, then you can look elsewhere. But if you're just looking at a wide receiver, I think the value is better just staying at 12 and hoping one of those guys falls to 12. But yeah, I mean, I think Jamar Chase is probably the pick at 6 as well. 7, the Lions. This is a place where, yeah, I'm not exactly too sure where to go, but I think the play is Sewell. Get some offensive line help for Goff. I mean, you want to set him up to succeed here in Detroit. Not that he wasn't in Los Angeles, but you want to put some good stuff around him. You could argue. I think you could argue definitely going receiver here. I think that's probably what most people would go with. But I'm gonna go with Sewell. He's probably the best offensive tackle in this draft and offensive lineman as well. He's just insane. I mean, yeah, I'll go with Sewell at 7.
Yeah, I'd go Sewell there also. The Lions are going to be really bad this year, so they'll probably have a top 3 pick next year. So I agree with build the offensive line first. Goff's not going to be the quarterback when this team's good, so you don't have to worry about his money when that all comes to deal. So I just build up the trenches, build up the places that you really need, then you can worry about skill positions. So the 8th pick is the Panthers. So they're a team that could maybe move up to that Falcons pick at 4. I know they've wanted a quarterback. They've been on Watson, somewhat on Wilson, some of these quarterbacks in the draft also. They haven't gotten anyone yet, but I know they want someone. So, again, we're assuming no trades. So still at 8 here, I say they go Mac Jones because they really want a quarterback. It just seems like from everything that they've done or what's been reported, they want one. So If they really do, then Mac Jones is going to be there, and Trey Lance could be there also. So I guess they could go Trey Lance also, but I'm gonna go Mac Jones. I think he just fits there, and if it's Trey Lance, if it's Mac Jones, I guess I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm gonna go with Mac Jones.
I think Lance is the better player. He didn't play. I think he played what? He played one game last year. Um, I just think Lance is the better player. He has the higher ceiling, maybe not the higher floor, but I think the ceiling is too good there to pass up on him, especially at 8. I just don't. I'm not a big Mac Jones fan. Like if the Patriots were to draft Mac Jones, I'd be pretty disappointed. Um, so yeah, at 9, the Broncos. I know they. This is a tough pick as well. I know they just signed Fuller, so that you might not say, hey, like you need corner, but I'm gonna go corner
Well, they also signed Ronald Darby also.
and Darby as
So
well. I don't think it's an immediate corner position that you look at and say you need corners here, but I still think you need. I mean, you signed Fuller to a 1 year deal. Darby's. I mean, I think he's on a 3 year deal, but he's not. He's nothing great or anything. He's not a guy you would look and say, all right, I'm not gonna draft a corner here. And I think he might be best player available as well. And now this is I'm not exactly, do I take Sertan or do I don't know. I'm gonna go with Sertan here. I'm gonna go with Sertan. I'll go Sertan at 9 to the Broncos. I know you probably wanted him on the Cowboys.
yeah.
I still think there's maybe even a better cornerback option at 10 than Sertan. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Sertan at 9 to the Broncos though.
Yeah, I mean that would have been my pick for the Cowboys at 10. That's the guy I want. That's the guy I hope they do take at 10. If I at 9 for the Broncos, I mean I wouldn't go corner. I'd probably go. I think his name's Jalen Phillips from Michigan. He's an edge rusher. I just think I just think their secondary is good with Simmons, Fuller, and Darby. They need help. If Parsons was there, I'd take Parsons, but I don't think he's going to be there. He could. If he's there, then take Parsons. I don't think he will. And if he's not there, I'd take Jalen Phillips. He's a good edge rusher from Miami who he just had concussion issues, so he really hasn't been playing as much. But I think he was the number 1 defensive end at a high school, and he was really good at UCLA. Then he had concussions, then transferred. But I guess for the Cowboys now, I'd still go corner. I'd go with what's his name, Jace Horn from Virginia Tech. He's probably the second best corner. Some people may say he's the best corner in the draft. If you're the Cowboys, you just need secondary help. So I would say if Horn's there, if Sertan's not there, then I think you have to go Jace Horn. I know he had a procedure on his back. I think it was maybe a week or two ago, but I just saw today there was a video of him from March 5th, I want to say it was, of him running a 40, and he ran a 4.2840. That's pretty impressive from a cornerback, something that we really haven't had on the Cowboys in a while, like a really speedy cornerback who's also physical like him. So even though I like Sertan better, if Sertan's not there, then I think you have to go Jace Horn.
I would say that probably the best cornerback, at least on a lot of people's draft boards, maybe most, would probably be the cornerback from Virginia Tech.
Jace Horn, that's what I was talking
No,
about.
no, 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 no. Caleb Farley. Sorry. I
Oh
think
yeah, yeah.
Farley is he. So the problem with Farley is he sat out last year, and he's really only had one great year. So if you're drafting Farley at at 9-10, you're basically drafting him off that 1 year before last year and his physical attributes. But he's had injury concerns in the past, so it's a risky pick. But I think it's a pick worth potentially taking if you're the Cowboys at 10. I was debating taking Farley at 9 for the Broncos. I think it's just who would you rather have, Farley or Sertan. I think Horn's there as well. I would have Farley and Sertan above Horn, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick. The Giants at 11. This is a tricky place as well. I mean, if a quarterback fell to the Giants at 11, out of the Lance Jones, you'd consider doing it, and I'm considering taking Lance, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Lance here at 11. I'm gonna do it. I think you probably wanted to take Lance at 12, maybe.
No, no. I'm just surprised that you would take Lance if you're the Giants. That's all.
I think Jones is horrible, right? And I don't think the Giants would take a quarterback here at 11. But if I'm the Giants GM here at 11, I do it. I think Jones is garbage. I think he's done. Yes, you'll give him like the first half of the season to see what he can do. So Lance would probably be the backup for the first half of the season, maybe around Thanksgiving. But after that, I would probably put Lance in, assuming Jones plays how he's played. I just don't think he's very good. Uh, he's pretty turnover prone. He's not like a spectacular talent as well. There's not much that I'm holding out for. If you know, so I'm gonna go with Lance there at 11. I think he's the best quarterback available, and I think if he goes 11, if any of the quarterbacks other than Mac Jones fall to 11 out of the top four, I would be very, 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 very surprised.
Yeah, I would at 11 just quickly. I'd probably go receiver, whether it be Waddle or Smith for the Giants. I know they got Galladay, they have Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, but I think if one of those receivers is there, which they will be, I'd take one of those. Which I guess that leads to my 12 pick with the Eagles. I would take Smith or Waddle again, whoever's there. I guess technically they're both there in our mock draft right here, so I would probably go Waddle. I think he's maybe the better receiver. I mean, I know Smith, he came in at 170. He said he's 170 pounds. That does concern me. And I know there's been other guys who have been underweight and everything like that, and they've been good. But to be 170 and to be a true number one wide receiver, that's just a lot to ask, especially with his. I mean, he's 170, but he looks even smaller than 170, honestly. Just like his look, he's just so skinny. So maybe it doesn't affect him when he gets to the NFL. I just think it will. So I'd probably go Waddle at 12. And I will say for my 10th pick for the Cowboys, I was mixing up Horn and Farley. When I said the back procedure, that was Farley, that wasn't Horn. But I'd still go Horn with that 10th pick. I just mixed some of their stuff up. But yeah, so 12 I'd go with Jalen Waddle.
All right, 13. It's tough as well. I think you can go in a bunch of different directions. I'm gonna go with Rashawn Slater. I don't know if he falls to 13. He probably will, but he might not. He is probably the second best tackle in the draft. Maybe yeah, he's probably the second best tackle in the draft. He's not on Sewell's level, at least in my mind, but he's played insane. He's blocked against some of the best prospects as of recently, like Chase Young. He played against Young and held his own there. I think Rashawn Slater is probably the second best tackle. You bring him in to protect Herbert, give him a solid offensive line to work with. Yeah, I mean Slater's a guy. Slater's a guy you draft here at 13, and you keep him for the next 10 years, and he's a perennial Pro Bowler. That's your hope at least, and I think you can definitely do that. So
Yeah, I would agree with that pick also. For 14 for the Vikings, this is where I'd go Jalen Phillips here. The guy was the edge rusher from Miami that I was talking about. If he's not taken before, I think that's a great pick for the Vikings. He's just, I don't know, he's just a beast, honestly, on that defensive line. And they obviously they've lost, Yannick Ngakoue, who they got, Everson Griffin the last couple years. Some other guys from the last couple of years. They've always had a really good edge rusher, so I think if they take Jalen Phillips, I think that would be a really good pick for a team that could maybe make the playoffs this year. I think it's more on their offense and their defense, but I think that's just a really good add at 14.
that's yeah, not a bad pick. At 15 here for the Patriots, this is a pick that they could trade up. They could trade up. They might even trade down. Who knows? You never really know with Belichick. If you made me bet, I think they probably stay at 15, and I think they actually pick from 15. And I think the hope is that either, again, Chase isn't going to fall to 15, but either Waddle or Smith falls to 15. So I'm going to go with Smith. I mean, he's the one that's fallen. So he's the one I'm going to take. I think those are probably the three best wide receivers in the draft. I'm not as concerned with the weight with Smith as you are. But it's definitely a concern. I think it's the reason he probably falls to 15 is solely just his weight. It's basically the opposite of somebody like Metcalf, where people were concerned about Metcalf's his size and his inability to turn on routes. And he might have been like a 1 or 2 route guy in the NFL, but he's clearly not that. I don't think the weight should affect Smith too much. I think he can play at one. I think he'll get to 180, 185. So yeah, I think he's the third best receiver. Maybe he could even be first. I think they're all pretty close. I think getting somebody at him at 15 is he might be best player available. I think he's a steal. And if you were to trade down from 15, Smith is a guy that you definitely wouldn't see there. So yeah.
Yeah, and I would. This is some of our last picks at 16 for the Arizona Cardinals. I think they go with Jason. I want to say his last name is Owa, or I'm not really sure to pronounce it. It's Oweh, but he's an edge rusher from Penn State. He, I think this is just a good pick here. I think he's a high ceiling. He's just super athletic and super. I don't even know what the word is. He's just super bendy, athletic, flexible, everything like that off the edge. He didn't have great college production, but I think that if he give him time to develop over a year or two, I think he can turn into a really good edge rusher for a Cardinals team that is kind of similar to that Vikings team. I know it's different situations, but similar in that they're teams that have a chance to be good this year and make the playoffs. Obviously, the Cardinals are in a much tougher division, so I just think it would be a really good pick for them there at 16 with Jason. Again, I want to say Owa is his last name.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick. I think if two edge rushers are taken in the first 16 picks, I think Quiddy Pay from Michigan is somewhere in there if I had to bet. But yeah, they're all pretty close. Him, Phillips, and yeah, I don't even know how to say his name, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're all pretty close. Yeah, that's the mock draft, first 16 picks. We'll definitely have another mock draft, some at least one more before the draft actually comes out. I'm not sure if it'll be the same format, but we'll see what happens. I'd anticipate at least, there's definitely going to be more moving up in terms of there's going to be prospects moving up in the draft and some sliding down, at least in most people's mock drafts. So I'm assuming the same will happen here. We'll see what happens, but I mean that's it for this episode. If you stayed to the end, appreciate it. Obviously, feel free to check everything out in the description. We'll be back Friday at noon.